People come to the Minnesota State Fair for a variety of reasons.
You have to eat something on a stick.
Always have to go to the Creative Arts Building.
Eat, eat, eat.
But many fairgoers also make it a point to stop by the House of Representatives booth and take the legislative opinion poll.
What did you think about our polls here?
I thought it was fine.
Pretty much always make sure that I come in and do it, so.
Conducted by the nonpartisan House Public Information Services Office, the annual informal, unscientific survey lets thousands of poll takers chime in on legislative topics and issues that have been recently addressed or could be in the 2019 session. Here are the results from the 2018 State Fair. The first question we asked fairgoers: should criminal background checks be required on all gun sales, including private transactions and at gun shows? Firearm regulation was one of the most talked about issues during the 2018 legislative session, with several proposals that supporters say would help reduce gun violence introduced. Opponents say, in part, new gun regulations would infringe on their Second Amendment rights. Here's how poll takers weighed in. Last year, Minnesota joined its neighboring states in allowing off-sale alcohol purchases on Sundays. Should our state join Wisconsin and Iowa in allowing grocery and convenience stores to sell beer, wine, and spirits? Food retailers can now sell lower alcohol or so-called 3-2 beer, but a proposal supported by several well-known grocers was introduced in 2018 that would have allowed these stores to sell regular alcoholic beverages. Others argued that this would hurt smaller mom-and-pop businesses and decrease revenue generated from municipal liquor stores. Though no action was taken, it's an idea that may be brought back during the upcoming session. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 115 people die every day from opioid abuse. In an attempt to combat this epidemic, Representative Dave Baker, a Republican from Wilmer, introduced legislation that would have, in part, charged drug manufacturers a 1 cent per tablet fee, with proceeds going to assist in the fight against opioid addiction. Poll takers agree with Baker's idea. Opponents of the so-called penny a pill proposal are concerned it would raise prescription and healthcare costs. In the wake of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Parkland, Florida last February, and other incidents across the country, several ideas were put forward by state lawmakers to prevent school violence. Representative Keith Franke, a Republican from St. Paul Park, carried a bipartisan proposal that would mandate school districts to establish a threat assessment team, including school officials and local law enforcement, to assess and intervene when individuals may pose a threat to safety. While the idea had support, some thought that it would be better to establish a pilot program rather than a statewide mandate. Here's what poll takers thought. As more states legalize the use of recreational marijuana, Minnesota continues to restrict the use of cannabis to medicinal purposes only. It's a question that some poll takers feel strongly about.
I think the legalization of marijuana is a pretty hot topic right now, so that was interesting.
I thought the question about marijuana kind of stood out, and I had a hard time kind of answering it.
We asked poll takers if Minnesota should legalize recreational marijuana for those aged 21 and over. The results show a slight change from 1 year earlier. Nearly 51% supported the idea when we asked the same expansion question at the 2017 State Fair. Last year, when we asked poll takers if Minnesota should legalize sports gambling, 55% of respondents were opposed. Since then, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that sports gambling cannot be limited to Nevada, thereby opening the door for states to legalize the activity. So in light of these recent developments, and using the same question, we wanted to see if fairgoers' opinions had changed. Here's what poll takers thought this time around. Tip credit or tip penalty? It's an issue that brought out strong opinions on both sides this past session when legislation was introduced that would have created a new minimum wage category for certain tipped employees. Some service workers believe it is only fair to increase the base minimum wage regardless of what they make in tips, while others say that an increase in their base pay could lead to fewer jobs and more automation. We asked fairgoers, should employers be allowed to pay lower hourly wages to tipped workers, such as restaurant waitstaff, if tips bring their pay to $14 an hour for large employers and $12 an hour for small employers? Here's what they thought. A controversial work requirement was introduced during the 2018 legislative session. Representative Kelly Fenton, a Woodbury Republican, sponsored a bill that would, in part, require work requirements for certain able-bodied adults who receive Medicaid. Republican lawmakers said the proposal would increase work participation and help protect the state's budget. Some on the DFL side called the idea unnecessary and said it would hamper efforts to expand access to health care. So we asked fairgoers, Should adults between the ages of 18 and 60 who do not have a disability and are not the sole caregivers of a child or incapacitated family member be required to work at least 80 hours per month in order to receive Medicaid benefits? Staying in the area of health and human services, we asked poll takers, should elder care facilities be required to allow families to place electronic monitoring devices, such as cameras, in the rooms or private living spaces of residents in order to monitor their care and well-being? Several bills were introduced last session in an effort to improve the health and safety of seniors cared for in nursing homes. The question is based off a proposal submitted by Representative Liz Olson, a DFLer from Duluth. Supporters say it would offer families peace of mind and guard against potential mistreatment, while others counter that constant monitoring could lead to mistrust and potentially change the way care is provided. Here's what poll takers thought. Most people agree additional funding is needed to improve the state's roads and bridges. How to pay for it is another story. We asked poll takers, should the state constitution be amended to require revenue from the sale of auto parts and repairs be dedicated to fund road and bridge improvements? Republicans generally supported the idea during the 2018 session. Many DFLers did not. Last year, nearly 61% of poll takers indicated they'd be open to increasing the state's 28.5 cents per gallon gas tax to help fund highway and bridge needs. Here is how poll takers felt about this year's question. Minneapolis and St. Louis Park are among cities to ban certain types of plastic or non-recyclable to-go containers at restaurants. Legislation put forth in 2018 would have nullified those bans and prohibited cities, towns, and counties from regulating or imposing fees on auxiliary containers from restaurants and retailers. Opponents say the proposal would take away an important tool cities could use to meet the state's recycling goals and take away local government rights. We asked if there should be a statewide ban on these types of containers. Here's how poll takers saw it. Our final question focused on a potential way to increase revenue for maintenance of the state's parks and trails. A January 2018 report from the Department of Natural Resources found that additional revenue is needed to help improve and maintain the state's parks, trails, and other public outdoor areas. We asked fairgoers, would you support increasing fees to help maintain the state's parks and trails? Here's how poll takers responded. Thanks to everyone who cast a ballot during our annual State Fair Legislative Opinion Poll. To follow these issues and many others now and into the future, check out our nonpartisan legislative coverage at www.house.mn/sessiondaily. We will see you next year at the Minnesota State Fair.